It's a tale as old as time. New Filmmaker spends all their budget and effort in trying to create the most beautiful images their camera can afford them. Meanwhile, their audio sounds like it was recorded in a restroom, with an extractor fan going full blast. All those cinematic moments, rendered entirely useless by audio that can only be described as, yes, very shitty. Let me give you some hard to swallow pills. Audio is more important than your video. In fact, without good audio, no other part of your production will work. People will forgive a bad image, and do all the time, but they'll never forgive bad sound. But here on YouTube, if my audience analytics are to be believed, nobody wants to learn about getting that good A, which is a little bit ironic, don't you think? A little too ironic? Yeah, I really do think. But nevertheless, we will press on in trying to educate those savvy few who wish to conquer one of the most important hurdles of this filmmaking process. And when looking to make an upgrade to your filmmaking kit, if you upgrade your audio system rather than buying that new camera, you might well benefit a lot more in terms of the perception of your productions by clients, while also saving a lot in terms of the cost of that upgrade. Now, hypothetically, if I were to ask you objectively, who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out? Would the answer be Saramonic? Well, they just might have with the K9 wireless audio system. Now, disclaimer, these mics were supplied to me for free to review, but this is not sponsored by Saramonic, and they did in fact encourage me to test and compare these directly to their competition, which I greatly respect. Can we normalize brands doing less shill jobs and more balanced reviews? And so we will be comparing them directly to the Rode Wireless Pros, the DJI Mic 2s, and the DJI Mic Minis, and you can decide which audio configuration sounds best. Because as the big dogs, the K9's gotta hunt. Only a few short years ago, all wireless microphones looked like the Saramonic K9, but that was before what is now known as the wireless 2.4 gigahertz revolution. We're in our mini mic era, where microphones using this bandwidth have gotten smaller.
And smaller, and smaller.
And I myself own several of these 2.4 gigahertz mics and use them daily for most of my video production work. They're affordable and insanely compact and work very well in most scenarios. These wireless mics have in fact mainly replaced my old Saramonic UW Mic 9s, which were essentially the previous generation of these K9 mics, a great affordable set of UHF mics that I used and relied upon for years. But when Saramonic offered to send me the Saramonic K9s for review, I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to look at these more traditional UHF pro level mics and ask the question, are they still relevant versus these smaller, cheaper 2.4 gigahertz mics? With the extra size, the antenna, and the extra cost of the K9s, why would you not opt for a 2.4 gigahertz alternative? And the shortest answer is reliability. The UHF bandwidth is greater than 2.4. It provides you the ability to scan across its frequency range, a wider frequency range, to find a signal with the least interference. And in general, UHF will have a lower potential for signal interference, whereas the 2.4 gigahertz frequency is cluttered with all sorts of signals from microwaves to baby monitors to Bluetooth devices. There's a lot of stuff bouncing around on their bandwidth. And what that leads to is signal interference and dropouts. This can be at big conventions or events with a lot of people using that frequency. It can happen when you're sandwiched between two tall buildings, or it can just happen when there are very strong 2.4 gigahertz signals being pushed around in the area. I do get dropouts here in my studio. That's why I record directly to this as a backup. I've had dropouts and interference on set, and in fact, the worst case scenario of this was shooting an interview outside where my Rode Wireless Pros were just not working. I had to down tools and go and get my old Saramonic UW Mic 9s, which had no signal problems whatsoever. I just happened to be near something that was completely disrupting my 2.4 GHz signal entirely. The K9s offer an auto scan mode, which can search for the best frequency on the UHF band to use, and you can also manually change your frequency through the transmitters should you need to. With the 2.4 GHz mic, you can't do this. If they're receiving interference, you can't fix this or try a different frequency. It's just simply going to be a problem for the rest of your shoot. And ultimately, that's why you will very rarely see a professional soundie using these smaller 2.4 GHz mics, despite them being much more discreet and easy to set up. And if your soundie is using them, well, you might want to think about getting a new soundie. Now, the K9s occupy a sweet spot along with the DJI Theos system, where they offer mainly pro features at a much more affordable price than some of the top tier UHF systems. This makes them ideal for corporate shooters, the one-man banders, and soundies with a small kit looking to break into the production space. So while $1,000 might not seem that affordable, it's actually very affordable for what you get. Also, weren't you just going to drop $1,000 on that lens last week? Remember what I said at the start of this? Sound should be invested in too. But one of the bigger leaps forward in technology here is that the K9s also feature 32-bit float internal recording to a micro SD card, and along with the DJI Theos mics are among the first UHF mics to offer this. But yes, there is a catch. Due to a patent in the US, you can't record 32-bit float internally and transmit to the receiver simultaneously. It's just one or the other. Now, in the rest of the world, you can use them as intended, transmitting and recording 32-bit float simultaneously, which is the best kind of redundancy when recording audio. It means that should you experience audio dropout, or more likely audio clipping, the internal 32-bit float recording can recover this clipped audio, and you won't lose a take because someone raised or lowered their voice too much. In fact, I used the K9s in this recent interview setup, and one of the recordings was a little too hot, but I can just go back to the 32-bit float recording and use that instead.
I love the most communicating with children. So children grow very fast, and when they have those nurturing relationships, I do enjoy seeing them grow every day. I love the most communicating with children. So children grow very fast, and when they have those nurturing relationships, I do enjoy seeing them grow every day.
Now, this feature is nothing new. Both the Rode Wireless Pro and the DJI Mic 2s do this as well. But traditionally, UHF labs have not offered this feature in older versions. The Saramonic K9s come in this case, and what I appreciate is the attention to detail and the fact that this really is an all-in-one system. You don't have to buy any extras or add-ons. It comes with a 2-transmitter kit. Both transmitters come with a 64GB micro SD card for the internal recordings. There are 2 lav mics, one for each transmitter, antennas for the transmitters, and receiver, batteries for each unit, 3.5mm to 3.5mm cable, and 2 XLR to 3.5mm cables, and a USB-C to USB-C for connecting the mics to a computer or for charging. You also get color-coded bands and belt clips. And these mics run on regular rechargeable AA batteries, which means you can run these for the rest of your life, occasionally swapping out the rechargeable batteries. Now, this is a fatal flaw with the new era wireless 2.4 GHz mics. They all have internal batteries, which will all run out at some point, and at that point, well, your mic is useless. No such problems if you invest in the K9. That's also an issue with the internal SSD used on the DJI and Rode mics. Eventually, they too may wear out, whereas because the K9s record to micro SD cards, you won't encounter that issue. You just need another micro SD card. And the design is really good here. First, you have the front screens on the transmitters to monitor your signal. On the receiver, you have a front monitor and another monitor on top, which means that if you have it mounted higher, you can still see the input levels going, which is a nice touch. Also, to adjust the mics and get into their menus, you have to open up their front covers, which means you or your subject can't accidentally press buttons that might ruin a recording session mid-take. I also found that the menu system on the transmitters to be super simple, intuitive, and easy to navigate, which is essential to make the mic easy and quick to use. The battery life for the transmitters is about 8 hours and the same for the receiver, which is ideal for a regular shoot day. The other thing to note here is that all the ports are locking, which means cables from the lav mics won't be falling out when tucked into someone's back pocket. The receiver has a and B 3.5mm port. You can use the second port to monitor your audio levels, or you can split the mic's tracks to go into 2 separate XLR channels, say if you're using something like the Sony FX3 top handle. Now, if you compare these to the old Saramonic UW Mic 9s, you can see the design is sleeker. They've gotten a bit smaller and have a much nicer LCD screen. The quality of the supplied lav seems really good. Another feature that I thought was a nice touch is that you can connect these via USB-C to your computer to transfer off the audio files you might have recorded to those transmitters. This makes the process much simpler than having to extract the micro SD card, which is behind the batteries and very difficult to get out and put back in. Also, if you do connect the receiver to your computer, it will show up as an audio device, meaning you can record directly to your computer like this.
And now we're just running a quick test. I have the Saramonic K9s, and this is actually plugged into my computer via the receiver, and it's transmitting the audio from the transmitter through the receiver directly into my computer and then recording it in OBS.
Overall, this is an extremely well thought out, comprehensive mic system, one that pretty much ticks every box. The only thing these are missing from a complete all-in-one system perspective is a wireless phantom power module to power a shotgun mic, like their previous version of the UW Mic 9, which I used all the time for interviews and still do from time to time while event shooting. However, I have spoken to my rep at Saramonic, and they are aware of this gap in their ecosystem and are working on a solution. Now, I do want to cover a few of the things I don't like about these mics. The downloadable app allows you to control most of the functions of the K9s through your phone, but I did find the app itself to be quite clunky and hard to navigate. I also noticed that although it allows you to monitor the levels coming from the transmitters, it doesn't work very well, and a lot of the time the level bars will disappear even though the mics are still on and transmitting. Overall, its layout is not super intuitive, and I found it easier to just go into the menus on the transmitters themselves to make changes, but I wish they'd make the app as functional as the actual mics themselves. I also did find it tricky to connect to my Mac to offload audio and use it as a computer audio recorder, and my first attempts were unsuccessful, but after trying for a second time, doing exactly the same thing and changing nothing, they connected without issue. But allegedly, there is a known problem with Macs specifically, that it's a little bit finicky. While I appreciate that micro SD cards are inside and available, I think the placement of them is not ideal. They are very hard to get to if you can't connect your mics to the computer through the USB-C for any reason. And finally, yes, this is a bigger setup. Even the time it takes to screw on all the antennas and then add the backplate with the cold shoe mount is all time consuming. And if you're used to the small wireless 2.4 gigahertz options, this process will feel quite cumbersome to you. And I'd forgotten how much I didn't like having such a big receiver sitting on top of my camera while recording. It definitely feels like it gets in the way. Okay, so we've looked at some of the features and functions on the K9s, but let's run through the audio tests comparing this to some of the more affordable 2.4 gigahertz options. These are all completely uncompressed recordings here in my studio.
Okay, and now we're just doing a audio test with the Saramonic K9s running into the Panasonic S1 II. We are using the Saramonic lav mic, and this is what the audio sounds like. So this is the kind of audio you can expect When you have the premium Saramonic K9s, it is also recording 32-bit float internally as backup, and this is what the audio sounds like. Okay, and now we are recording with the Saramonic K9 running into the Panasonic S1 II, and we've got the Sanken COS 11D lav microphone, which has replaced the Saramonic K9 lav, which comes with the Saramonic K9 set. So this is a much more expensive lavalier mic recording on the S1 II, and yes, we are recording 32-bit float, and this is what the audio sounds like. So now we are recording with the DJI Mic 2. It is running into the Sanken COS 11D lav. We cannot clip this on properly because it has no locking mechanism, but we're just going to hope that it's okay. And this is what the audio sounds like from the DJI Mic 2 with a proper lav attached going into the Panasonic S1 II. Now we are recording on the DJI Mic 2, but yes, we had to go full YouTube. That's right, no lav mic, just the DJI Mic 2 sitting on my chest, hopefully about the right distance away. We've had to make a slight adjustment to the audio, but this is what the audio sounds like, no lav mic, coming from the DJI Mic 2. So now we're recording with the DJI Mic Mini, this little guy, this little fellow. We do not have a lav attachment. We have no 3.5mm jack, so it's always just going to be what you hear when it's stuck to your chest. This is the audio coming from the DJI Mic Mini. It is going into the Panasonic S1 II. This is the Rode Wireless Pro with no lav mic plugged in, just the mic. This is what the audio sounds like running into the Panasonic S1 II. And yes, we are recording 32-bit float additionally, but this is what the Rode Wireless Pro sounds like. And we're still filming on the Rode Wireless Pro, but we have the Saramonic K9 lav mic plugged in, and now we are just checking the audio to see if it sounds any better with the lav mic. This is the Rode Wireless Pro. It's running into the Panasonic S1 II. So we're recording on the Rode Wireless Pro with the Sanken COS 11D lav mic, the most expensive lav. We just have it on my chest here. And this audio is running directly through to the Panasonic S1 II. We're also recording in 32-bit float.
Which wireless audio option did you prefer? Did you think the K9s sounded better or worse? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. So is it worth going pro and getting something like the K9s? I think it all depends on the work you do. Using this on a shoot, while I didn't enjoy navigating the size of the K9s, I did enjoy the more professional setup and features that it offered. It reminded me of how fiddly the DJI Mic 2s can be and how these are really just a more premium insurance policy for your audio. They are definitely a very competitively priced pro-grade mic option and do not feel like, little toys. A lot of working on set is finding gear that is 100% reliable, and that's why the Panasonic S1 II's overheating is such a big deal and such a red flag for those of us working in long-form video production. You just can't have cameras shutting down mid-shoot, ever. This is a non-negotiable. Likewise with sound, you just can't afford to risk 2.4 gigahertz audio not working due to heavy interference. You can't tell clients, hey, the audio's not working because there's a bit too many people using phones and Bluetooth in this area. So you invest in gear that mitigates the potential for these giant f**k-ups as best you can. So the K9s are really just that premium insurance policy for your audio. They're definitely very competitively priced, pro-level sound kit that is really going to put pressure on companies like Sennheiser and Electrosonic to kind of stay honest with their pricing of similar sets. And that makes them a fantastic audio option for me and the work I do, and anything on higher level productions. But for those mainly doing quick social media pieces, working with very small kits and doing less involved audio work, you'll most likely get by just fine with something like the DJI Mic 2s, especially recording with the 32-bit float internally as your backup. although the jury is still out on just how long these type of mics will last with their internal batteries. It all depends on what you aspire to create. As a long-term investment for making movies, I think these are great, and I was surprised by just how well thought out these are. But you can't beat the form factor and speed of just tucking one of those DJI mics under a jacket or t-shirt and hitting record. All in all, it's fair to say you won't be disappointed should you choose to let loose the dogs of war. The K9s are definitely not all bark and no bite. Perhaps the K9s are the pit bulls to the toy poodle 2.4 GHz wireless mics. Don't worry, Oscar, I'm not talking about you. You're definitely a real dog, and don't let those big dogs tell you otherwise. Feel like leaving a mean comment about my dog analogies? Just be aware it's the equivalent of taking a dump on my freshly mowed lawn. As always, I am the Savage Filmmaker, and I'll see you when I see you. Ho, 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 ho. Ho. Bo. Bo, 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 bo. 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 Bo.